the Independent Group, and Senator Aubrey. McCarthy.
Thank you, Éireann. Thank you, Minister, for being here. Oops, you're very welcome to the Seanad, and I welcome the opportunity to contribute to today's statements on Irish water, Éireann. At the outset, I want to emphasise the critical role, as you've mentioned yourself, that Éireann plays in enabling the delivery of new homes. We all know that housing is the defining social and economic challenge of our time, and this morning I was at the AV room briefing for the IPAV, and there were examples given about how property developments are being delayed, and one example was given by a developer whereby he was saying that there's 125 metres of a water line to be put in between 75 houses and the proper Éireann infrastructure. He received a quote from a developer, builder, who puts in water lines, and it was 1,000 per metre. That was 125,000. However, the regulation states he has to go by Éireann, and Éireann then gave him a quote of over 500,000. So that was the debate in the AV room today. And we all know that across the country that housing projects are being delayed, and it's been mentioned in this House many times, because of the lack of water and infrastructure, and it cannot keep pace with demand. I'm on the Housing Committee, and we've had Éireann in, and we've seen that many essential projects are drifting, such as the Greater Dublin City drainage, which has been delayed for years. And what has come up many, many times has been the Shannon Water Dublin supply, and without which I know Dublin really faces a critical shortage. Also, strategic trunks for mains and regional upgrades are long overdue across the country. And if these projects are truly national priorities, then, Minister, we need to have full government backing and legislation to protect them from further delays. There are 20, 30 and 40-year-old assets that, as you've mentioned, they need to be updated. They cannot be at the mercy of short-term politics or endless procedural cycles. Their funding and approval timelines must be ring-fenced, and they must be protected by law. Local authorities and developers repeatedly highlight, as I mentioned earlier, that the single biggest constraint on housing delivery is the availability of service land, Tier 1 land. Without adequate water and wastewater capacity, planning permissions cannot be activated, and communities are left waiting. And if we're serious about meeting the Housing for All targets, the targets that were announced by Minister James Brown last week, which are really encouraging, if we're serious about meeting them, well then Irish Water must be resourced, and it must be mandated to prioritise the expansion of infrastructure in the growth areas. This is not simply just about pipes and treatment plants. It's about ensuring that families can move into homes, that towns and villages can thrive, and that Ireland can meet its obligations to provide shelter for all. At the same time, you mentioned the quality of water, and we cannot lose sight of the quality of water that flows into these homes I've mentioned. The most recent APA, Environmental Protection Agency report, it shows that half of our rivers, lakes and estuaries, they fail to meet good ecological status. So boil water notices are regular, we regularly see them, and they remain in place in several communities. And cryptosporidium outbreaks remind us of the risks when infrastructure lags behind. Irish Water has made progress, and that must be mentioned here, in upgrading treatment plants and reducing the number of schemes on the EPA's remedial action list. But also, challenges still remain. Nutrient pollution from agriculture, combined with inadequate wastewater treatment in certain areas, it continues to undermine water quality. And this has knock-on effects for biodiversity, which has been mentioned in this House many times, for public health, and for also Ireland's compliance with EU directives. So, Cathaoirleach and Minister, I'm asking you to address the task, which is twofold. That's to ensure that Irish Water can deliver the infrastructure necessary for housing, and to guarantee that the water supplied is safe, clean, but also sustainable. Investment must be accelerated, planning must be streamlined, and collaboration with farmers, communities and NGOs must be deepened. I also wish to acknowledge Minister Brown's announcement last week where in the housing plan an additional 12.2 billion is going to be invested in water services, and this is significant and it is very welcome commitment. Such a level of funding will not only accelerate housing delivery, I believe, but it will ensure that service land is available. But it will also modernise and expand our water infrastructure nationwide. But there's another issue that always comes to the fore, and that's the issue of zoning and servicing and the gridlock that happens there. Councils will not zone land, and I know that from my own area, unless Éireann confirms capacity. Éireann cannot confirm capacity without the proper funding, so it's like a catch-22. So that's a gridlock that certainly seems to needs to be addressed, and I believe Minister Brown is going to do that. Housing and water, they are inseparable, and families cannot move into homes without reliable services, and those services must meet the highest standards of quality. I urge the Government to give Irish Water the resources and authority it needs to deliver both homes for our people and clean water for our community. And Minister, I'm not too sure if you know, but today is World Toilet Day. So, water, clean water and all that is essential for every aspect of what we have in our house. Go raibh maith agaibh, Céhiúlach and Minister. Thank you.
Senator.